So what is time to first byte? Time to first byte is the amount of time it takes for a web browser to receive the first byte of data from a web server after the user has made a request. So imagine you're browsing the web and you click on a link to a website. The web browser sends a request to the server asking for the web page. The time to first byte is the amount of time it takes for the server to receive, process, and start sending back the requested data to the user's browser. Now you might be thinking, why does that matter? Like, at all? Well, here's the thing. Time to first byte is actually an important metric when it comes to Core Web Vitals. Core Web Vitals are a set of performance metrics that Google uses to evaluate a user's experience on a website. If your website has a high time to first byte, it can negatively impact the way that Google scores your site using Core Web Vitals and ultimately hurt your search engine ranking. And as we all know, the best place to hide a dead body is on the second page of Google, because nobody goes there. So let's dig a little bit deeper, shall we? So what does it mean if you have a high time to first byte? Well, a high time to first byte means that it's taking a long time for the server to respond to the browser's request. This can be caused by a variety of factors, such as network latency, poorly written back-end code, bottlenecks in your server's resources, a large number of requests being made to the server at the same time. It really could be anything. And you would really benefit from using a monitoring tool to diagnose your site and see what's up. But a high time to first byte can lead to slower page load times, which not only infuriates the Google algorithm, but also frustrates end users and could potentially lead to them abandoning your site. So what can you do to improve your time to first byte? Well, there are a few common issues that can cause high time to first byte, and I've got just the solutions that you can try to implement. One common issue is network latency, which is the amount of time it takes for data to travel between the browser and the server. While cables are very fast, data packages also need to go through switches, routers, internet service providers, VPNs, internet exchange points, and lots of other things. All of those milliseconds do add up, and for users in certain geographical locations, namely those on the other side of the globe, it can result in waiting many seconds for a server to respond. If you have a high time to first byte due to network latency, you might want to consider investing in a content delivery network to improve the speed of data delivery. CDNs essentially make a copy of your website and distribute it around the world, making it more accessible for more people around the world. Another common issue is slow server processing. If your server is taking a long time to process requests, it can contribute to a high time to first byte. What this really means is that your users are making a request, the server receives that request, and then spends a longer than average amount of time processing that request. If you're using WordPress, and over 80% of the world is, the most common culprit for high time to first byte is dynamically generated content. In this case, it's when PHP has to run queries in your database to pull up large files that support your website. Those queries can take a long time and contribute to a high time to first byte. To fix this, either make the file size smaller, cache them using WordPress's caching system, or step up your server capabilities. Don't forget, servers are computers too, and they can have similar bottlenecks. If your server is old or outdated, it will not be able to handle many or complex requests. So make sure that you're running your site on decent hardware and that your software doesn't overly stress your setup. If you are using a cheaper alternative for hosting, make sure they are using good hardware by reading the fine print of your contract and/or running a synthetics test to see if they are meeting their SLAs. You can use a tool like Sematext Synthetics to make sure that your providers are providing exactly what they promised. Run synthetics tests to see, measure, and track your site's performance and Core Web Vitals. We already set up a couple alerts for you, but you can create your own to be instantly notified when your site is not performing as you think it should. And get a full breakdown report as to why your site is running slowly. Link to a free trial down in the description box below. Another way to reduce your time to first byte is by reducing the number of requests that are being made to a single server. This can be done by optimizing your website's code. What that looks like depends heavily on what kind of site you already have. But if, even after going through all of your code and making all the necessary changes, you are still getting a high time to first byte, consider scaling horizontally, either by physically adding more servers or by using a CDN, as discussed earlier. Last but not least, it's important to know that time to first byte affects mobile devices differently than desktop devices. Mobile devices often have slower network connections than desktop devices, which can lead to a higher time to first byte. While Google does take that into account, it's important to optimize your website for mobile devices to minimize the time to first byte across the board and improve your user experience for mobile users. Now you might be thinking, okay, I understand what time to first byte is and why it's important, but how do I actually measure it? That's a great question. There are many free tools online to test your site manually, but with Sematext Synthetics, you can set it and forget it. We will run synthetics tests periodically on your site to make sure that it's always performing as it should, and when it doesn't, you will be instantly notified with detailed information about the failed tests. It's important to keep in mind that time to first byte can vary depending on the location of the server and the end user. So it's a good idea to test your website from multiple locations to get more accurate measurements. With us, you can test from multiple locations around the globe or from your own custom location. It's totally up to you. So time to first byte is a very important metric. To learn more about Core Web Vitals, check out this video here. And if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, as we are always making tech videos on the regular. I'll see you in the next one. And until then, keep monitoring.